"Mr. Barron," she said, her voice soft but serious, "I have a question for you." It was a breezy afternoon in Central Park. The trees swayed gently as children played, laughter echoing through the air. Barron Trump was strolling through the park, enjoying a rare moment of solitude. With a book tucked under his arm, he walked past a small playground where families gathered, their lives seemingly filled with joy. As he approached a bench near the pond, he noticed a young girl sitting alone, clutching a small stuffed animal tightly to her chest. Her face was pale, her eyes distant, as if she were lost in a world of her own. Something about her posture tugged at Barron's heart, compelling him to stop. "Hi there," he said gently, lowering himself to her level. "Are you okay?" The little girl looked up, startled at first, but then her lips curled into a faint smile. "I'm okay, I guess," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Barron hesitated for a moment. He could see the sadness in her eyes. "Mind if I sit with you?" he asked, gesturing to the bench beside her. She nodded silently, shifting over to make room. Barron sat down, his long legs stretching out in front of him. "What's your name?" "Emily," she replied, clutching her stuffed bear even tighter. "Nice to meet you, Emily. My name's Barron." Her eyes widened slightly. "You're like the president's son, right?" Barron chuckled softly. "Yeah, something like that." He paused, observing her somber expression. "You don't seem very happy, Emily. Is everything okay?" Emily looked down at her bear, her fingers tracing the worn fabric. "I'm just thinking a lot." "About what?" Barron asked, his voice calm and inviting. Emily hesitated, her small frame trembling slightly. "About God," she finally said, her voice cracking. Barron leaned forward, genuinely intrigued. "What about God?" Emily took a deep breath, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know if he's real. Everyone keeps saying he loves us, but if he loves us, why do bad things happen? Why did my dad have to leave us? Why is my mom so sick?" Her words hit Barron like a ton of bricks. He could see the pain etched in her face, the weight of questions far too heavy for someone so young. "I'm really sorry you're feeling this way," Emily, Barron said softly. "But can I tell you what I think?" She nodded, her teary eyes meeting his. "I think God is real," Barron began, his voice steady. "And I think sometimes life is hard because we live in a world where bad things can happen. But that doesn't mean God isn't there. Sometimes he shows himself through the people around us, through acts of love and kindness." Emily blinked, her tears spilling over. "But I don't feel him. I feel alone." Barron's heart ached for her. "You're not alone, Emily. I promise you that. Sometimes when we're hurting, it's hard to see the good around us. But I believe God puts people in our lives to remind us we're loved. Like your mom, she loves you so much, right?" Emily nodded, sniffling. "She does. She says I'm her little angel." "And she's yours too," Barron said with a gentle smile. "Even when things are tough, love like that is a glimpse of God. He's in those moments when someone cares for you, when they make you smile, or when they sit with you, like I'm doing now." Emily looked at him, her tears slowing. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," Barron said sincerely. "And I believe you're strong, Emily. Even when it's hard, you're still here, holding on. That's courage. And I think God sees that too." Emily's lips trembled as she absorbed his words. For a moment, the world around them seemed to quiet, the laughter and chatter of the park fading into the background. "Do you really think so?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know so," Barron replied, his tone unwavering. "You've been through so much, and yet here you are, still hoping, still searching for answers. That takes a lot of strength, Emily." She clutched her stuffed bear tightly. "Sometimes I just wish I could talk to God and ask him why things are so hard." Barron leaned back slightly, his gaze lifting to the sky. "You know, Emily, I think we do talk to God. Every time we cry out in pain or whisper a little hope in the middle of the night, I believe he hears us. And sometimes his answer isn't a booming voice or a miracle we can see right away. Sometimes it's the people he brings into our lives to help us when we need it the most. Emily tilted her head, her young mind working to process his words. So, maybe you're here because of him. Barron smiled gently. Maybe. Or maybe we're both here because we needed each other today. For the first time, a faint smile broke through Emily's tear-streaked face. I never thought about it like that. Barron nodded. Neither did I until now. Their conversation carried on as the sun dipped lower in the sky. Emily began to open up about her life, sharing stories of her mom's strength and the struggles they faced after her dad left. She talked about the nights when she would lie awake, scared and uncertain, and the mornings when her mom would sing to her while making breakfast, trying to fill their small apartment with as much love as possible. She sounds like an amazing mom, Barron said, his voice filled with admiration. She is, Emily agreed. But she's so tired all the time now. I just want her to be happy again. Barron's chest tightened. He wished he could erase the pain this little girl was feeling, but he knew he couldn't. All he could do was be there for her in that moment. Emily, he said softly, sometimes the best way we can help someone we love is by being their light when things feel dark. Just like your mom tries to be yours. Emily nodded thoughtfully. But how do I do that? By loving her the way she loves you, Barron replied. By reminding her she's not alone, just like you reminded me today. Emily looked up at him, her eyes wide with wonder. I reminded you. You did, Barron said with a warm smile. Talking to you today has reminded me how important it is to show kindness and love to the people around us. You've made a bigger difference than you realize. As the evening deepened, Emily's mother approached. Her steps were slow, her face pale and drawn, but her eyes lit up when she saw Emily smiling. There you are, sweetheart, she said, her voice soft but warm. Mum! Emily exclaimed, running to her and wrapping her arms around her waist. Barron stood up, giving them a moment before stepping forward. Hi, ma'am, he said politely. The woman looked at him, her brows furrowing in recognition. You're... Oh my, you're Barron Trump, aren't you? He smiled modestly. Yes, ma'am. I've just been keeping Emily company for a little while. Prior to arriving at the jail cell, little Dale crouched down beside Emily. Her eyes softened as she looked at her daughter. Thank you. She doesn't talk to many people these days. She's a remarkable girl, Barron said sincerely. Emily's mother gave a small, tired smile. She's my everything. Barron hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Ma'am, I know things might be tough right now, but I want you to know that there are people who care. If there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she reached out to shake his hand. That means more than you know. Thank you. Barron watched as they walked away, hand in hand, a sense of peace settling over him. But as he turned to leave, something stopped him. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more he could do. Pulling out his phone, he made a quick call to a close friend who worked with a non-profit organization. Hi, this is Barron. I need some help. There's a family I just met, and I think they could use some support. Over the next few days, Barron quietly arranged for Emily's family to receive assistance. Groceries were delivered to their doorstep, medical expenses for Emily's mother were covered, and a small but steady flow of financial support was provided anonymously. When Emily and her mother discovered the gifts, they were overwhelmed with gratitude. Emily clutched her bear tightly and whispered a silent prayer of thanks, her faith renewed. Barron found himself back at the park. As he walked along the familiar path, he heard a small voice call out, "Barron!" He turned. Turning, he saw Emily running toward him, her face beaming with joy. Behind her, her mother stood, looking healthier and more at ease. "Emily," Barron greeted, crouching to meet her. "Guess what?" she said excitedly. "Mum's feeling so much better, and we're going to church this Sunday together. I'm going to ask God to say thank you for sending you to us." Barron felt a lump form in his throat as he smiled at her. "That's wonderful, Emily." She hugged him tightly, and for a moment, everything else faded away. As Barron walked away that day, he couldn't help but feel that their meeting had been no coincidence. Sometimes, he thought, we're placed in each other's lives for reasons we don't fully understand until much later. And in that moment, he felt grateful to have been part of a story that reminded him and Emily that even in the darkest times, there is always light to be found. Emily's lips trembled as she absorbed his words. For a moment, the world around them seemed to quiet, the laughter and chatter of the park fading into the background. "Do you really think so?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know so," Barron replied, his tone unwavering. "You've been through so much, and yet here you are, still hoping, still searching for answers. That takes a lot of strength, Emily." "Yes." She clutched her stuffed bear tightly. "Sometimes, I just wish I could talk to God and ask him why things are so hard." Barron leaned back slightly, his gaze lifting to the sky. "You know, Emily, I think we do talk to God. Every time we cry out in pain or whisper a little hope in the middle of the night, I believe he hears us. And sometimes, his answer isn't a booming voice or a miracle we can see right away. Sometimes, it's the people he brings into our lives to help us when we need it the most." Emily tilted her head, her young mind working to process his words. "So, maybe you're here because of him?" Barron smiled gently. "Maybe. Or maybe we're both here because we needed each other today." For the first time, a faint smile broke through Emily's tear-streaked face. "I never thought about it like that." Barron nodded. "Neither did I, until now." Their conversation carried on as the sun dipped lower in the sky. Emily began to open up about her life, sharing stories of her mum's strength and the struggles they faced after her dad left. She talked about the nights when she would lie awake, scared and uncertain, and the mornings when her mum would sing to her while making breakfast, trying to fill their small apartment with as much love as possible. "He sounds like an amazing mom," Barron said, his voice filled with admiration. "Sure is," Emily agreed. "But she's so tired all the time now. I just want her to be happy again." Barron's chest tightened. He wished he could erase the pain this little girl was feeling, but he knew he couldn't. All he could do was be there for her at that moment. "Emily," he said softly, "sometimes the best way we can help someone we love is by being their light when things feel dark. Just like your mom tries to be yours." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "But how do I do that?" "By loving her the way she loves you," Barron replied. "By reminding her she's not alone. Just like you reminded me today." Emily looked up at him, her eyes wide with wonder. "I reminded you." "You did," Barron said with a warm smile. "Talking to you today has reminded me how important it is to show kindness and love to the people around us. You've made a bigger difference than you realize." As the evening deepened, Emily's mother approached. Her steps were slow, her face pale and drawn, but her eyes lit up when she saw Emily smiling. She paused a few feet away, as if trying to absorb the rare and precious sight of her daughter's happiness. "Emily?" she called softly, her voice trembling with emotion. Emily turned, her face lighting up even more. "Mom!" she exclaimed, running into her mother's arms. Her mother held her tightly, closing her eyes as tears slipped down her cheeks. For a moment, it was just the two of them, wrapped in a bubble of love and relief. When Emily finally pulled back, she turned to Barron with a big smile. "Mom, this is my new friend, Barron. He's been talking to me about God and being brave." Barron stepped forward, offering a polite nod. "Hi, ma'am." "I'm Barron. Emily is an incredible girl." Emily's mother's face softened as she looked at Barron. "Thank you for spending time with her. She doesn't smile like that often anymore." Barron could see the weariness in her eyes, the weight of worry etched into every line on her face. "She's brightened my day too," he said sincerely. "You've done a wonderful job raising her." The woman's lips quivered at the compliment. "I will try. It hasn't been easy, but she's my everything." There was a pause, the weight of unspoken struggles hanging in the air. Emily looked between them, sensing the heaviness in her mother's voice. She covered her mouth with one hand. Barron couldn't shake the sense that this family needed more than a kind conversation. He hesitated, then said gently, "Ma'am, if there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. I mean that." Emily's mother's eyes widened slightly, and she looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and surprise. "That's very kind of you, but we've been managing." Somehow, managing. The word lingered in Barron's mind. It wasn't a declaration of thriving or even surviving. It was the language of someone holding on by the thinnest of threads. "Sometimes," Barron said carefully, "it's okay to accept help. We all need a little kindness now and then." Emily's mother didn't respond right away. She looked down at Emily, who was clutching her stuffed bear and watching them with innocent curiosity. Finally, she nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. That means more than you know." That night, Barron couldn't stop thinking about Emily and her mother. Their faces lingered in his mind, the resilience in Emily's eyes, the quiet despair in her mother's. He found himself pacing his room, trying to figure out what he could do. He didn't want to overstep, but he couldn't ignore the tug in his heart to act. Finally, he picked up his phone and called a family friend who ran a charitable organization. "Hey, it's Barron. I need your advice on helping a family I met today. They're going through a tough time, and I want to make sure they're taken care of." Over the next few days, Barron quietly set plans into motion. He arranged for groceries to be delivered to their home, ensuring that their pantry would always be full. He also reached out to a local clinic to cover Emily's mother's medical bills, knowing how important it was for her to stay healthy for Emily's sake. A week later, Barron returned to the park, hoping to see Emily again. He sat on the same bench, watching the children play and the parents chat. Just as he began to wonder if he'd missed her, he heard a familiar voice. "Barron." He turned to see Emily running toward him, her face glowing with happiness. Behind her, her mother was walking more steadily, her complexion healthier and her expression brighter. "Emily," Barron greeted, standing to meet her. She threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she said, her voice bubbling with joy. Her mother approached, tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you enough," she said. "The groceries, the help with my medical bills, it's more than I could have ever hoped for." Barron smiled modestly. "You don't need to thank me. I just wanted to make sure you two were okay." Emily looked up at him, her eyes shining. "We're more than okay now. Mom says we're going to be okay for a long time." As Barron spent more time with Emily and her mother, he realized how deeply their lives had impacted his own. He learned more about their struggles, their hopes, and their unwavering determination to keep going despite the odds. Emily's faith, which had wavered when they first met, began to grow stronger. She started asking questions about God and hope, and Barron found himself humbled by her openness and curiosity. One day, as they sat together on the park bench, Emily said, "Barron, do you think God sent you to us?" Barron paused, then smiled. "I think maybe we were meant to find each other. Sometimes, the people we meet are exactly what we need, even if we don't realize it right away." Emily nodded thoughtfully, clutching her bear. "I'm glad we found you." As the months passed, the bond between Barron, Emily, and her mother deepened. What had started as a chance encounter in the park became a friendship that changed all of their lives. Emily's mother regained her health and strength, finding new hope and energy to care for her daughter. Emily, in turn, grew more confident and joyful, her smile becoming a regular part of her days. For Barron, the experience was transformative. He realized that even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples that extended far beyond what he could see. One evening, as they all sat together watching the sunset, Emily said softly, "Barron, do you think we'll always be friends?" Barron looked at her, his heart full. "Always, Emily. Always." As the sun set on their shared moments of joy and connection, Barron knew that this friendship would be one he cherished forever. In the simplest of gestures, a bond had been formed, one that would continue to bring light to all their lives, no matter what the future held. What began as a chance meeting turned into a reminder that kindness and compassion have the power to change lives in ways we might never fully understand. Emily's journey, from a quiet, uncertain girl to a confident and hopeful young soul, was a testament to the healing power of love, support, and a listening ear. Her mother, once burdened with the weight of illness and fear, had found strength again, not just in her own resilience, but in the kindness of others. Barron realized that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't just material help, but the belief that they are worthy of kindness, that they are seen, heard, and valued. Emily and her mother had given him as much as he had given them, and that exchange was something he would carry with him always. So the next time you see someone in need, remember the story of Barron, Emily, and her mother. A simple act of kindness, a few words of encouragement, can change someone's world. After all, it's not the size of the gesture that matters, it's the heart behind it. Thank you for watching, and if this story moved you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's spread the message that no act of kindness is too small, and that the bonds we build today can last a lifetime. See you in the next video. And until then, take a moment to brighten someone's day. You never know, the kindness you show might be the one thing that changes their world forever.